the stand. Now he runs. He produces a magic print. He pulls out another one. This is incredible. This is ridiculous. This is 15 out of 10 on the incredible meter. What a player. What an entertainer. Give him the medal. Give him the Dally-M medal.
Hello, footy fans, and welcome back to the Chip and Chase podcast. We're back Thursday, which means we're going to be here to do our Thursday and Friday team previews, our game previews leading into round 6 of the NRL Telstra Premiership season. So we're not going to waste too much time into it. We're going to get straight into our Thursday game. That, of course, being the Knights taking on the Sydney Roosters, 7:50 p.m. at McDonald Jones Stadium. So, of course, this one is a Knights home game. Knights currently sitting in 12th, so they're just behind the Roosters, who are actually only in 10th place themselves. I think, you know, we sort of started by thinking that the Roosters were having a really good season, but they've kind of felt fallen off a bit. They're only 2-5 coming into this game. So I think both teams are actually 2-5 here. It's just a points differential that has the Roosters above the Knights on the ladder here. So it's going to be a very interesting game to see. It's almost a bit of a shame that the Roosters are without a lot of their gun players. Of course, we will get into the team lists, but of course, a lot of injuries coming from their last game against the Bulldogs. A lot of injuries, a lot of suspensions. So it's a bit of a shame, but we will take what we can get. I still expect a good game of footy. It's a shame I can't be at this one. Of course, I've got work on this one, but we'll get this preview podcast out there and I'll get back and hopefully watch this game tonight. But yeah, we'll start with the ins and outs for the Knights. So there's not much of note for them. They're very much stock standard to the team that they named last week. Dylan Lucas is named in second row this week. Tyson Frizell was a late out, but he's expected to be out for another week or two. Frizell. So Dylan Lucas seems to be vacating that taking that spot vacated by Tyson Frizell for the next couple of weeks. Besides that, the rest of their team is stock standard. It's important to note that they've just trimmed their reserves, and it's Brodie Jones and Greg Marju that have been left in their reserves. So there is a possibility Greg Marju is a late inclusion for this game, and he comes into the team to make his return from injury, which would be a massive plus for them. But we won't count on that, and we won't really know until a bit closer to game day, or game time, I suppose. For the Roosters, as I said, a lot more injuries, a lot more suspensions, so lots of team list changes in this one. So we'll just go through them. Joseph Manu, he is now at fullback for James Tedesco, who is out with a HIA, so he'll miss this week. Tedesco, Joey Manu goes into the fullback position. Michael Jennings, who ended up coming in as their 18th man last week, he is named in the centres for what will be his 300th game in the NRL and his second game, or his first starting performance in 4 years, since 2020, I want to say, was the last time we saw Michael Jennings play. So really cool stuff there. It's quite disappointing that the NRL has decided not to celebrate this game, saying that Michael Jennings' past actions have brought the game into disrepute and they're not going to be celebrating it. I think that's so stupid. If you think that what Michael Jennings has done off the field and the stuff that he's done there is enough to tarnish your game, you either don't let him back in, or if you do let him back in, you celebrate him as a player, which he is. Look, you can read into things. If you like Michael Jennings, you don't like Michael Jennings, that's completely fine. I like him as a footy player, and that's all I care about in that sense. But yeah, it's the NRL's decision who has brought him back into the NRL. They've let him come back, but now they're not celebrating it. And like 300 games is a massive achievement. So I think that's a bit disappointing from the NRL there. But moving on from that, Junior Ponga is the winger who replaces Dominic Young, who was out with suspension after his send-off against the Bulldogs. In the halves, Connor Watson comes into the 5'8" role, with Luke Keary moving to halfback in the absence of Sam Walker, who is also out with a HIA, just like James Tedesco. So he misses this week. Connor Watson 5'8", Luke Keary halfback. In terms of their forward pack, Nat Butcher comes back into this side. He wasn't injured. He wasn't sick or anything or dropped. He didn't play last week due to the birth of his child with his partner. So he went to be with his partner and witness the birth of his child. So it was nothing to do with form or injury or anything. So it's good to see him back, and congratulations. Shout out to the Butcher family for that. That's a fantastic achievement for you guys. Beyond that, that's about it for their forward pack. On the bench, Zach Docker-Clay is the man to take jersey 14 in that sort of utility role. Important to note here as well, I am hearing a few rumblings that Sitili Tupanua could be a late dropping in this one. Didn't have the best game last week to Tupanua, but Egan Butcher, he's currently 18th man, and I thought he was really good last week. I'd assume Egan would be the man to replace Sitili, especially because the two reserves at the moment are Egan Butcher and Lewis Murphy, who I think is a back. So I don't imagine they'll be placing Tupanua with a back if he is the man to make way. But again, we won't know until closer to game time. But those are the changes for these two teams. In terms of how I see this one playing out, I have tipped the Knights. I've tipped the Roosters a lot this season, but with the Knights, sort of current run of form, I think they've been playing really good. They obviously got that massive win over the Dragons last week in the torrential conditions in Newcastle. So to have another back-to-back game in the Hunter, I think it's going to do wonders for them. I think the Roosters, without all of their big stars, well, a lot of their big stars, I should say, it's going to be too much for them, especially, coming into the Newcastle Stadium, which we know that the Knights faithful fans are one of the best. They act as like almost a 14th man out there. So I've tipped I've tipped the Knights in my tipping comp. Yeah, I just think the way that they played last week, obviously very different conditions in the rain, but I think if they can play like that, they can get it done. I'm still not convinced on their forward pack, but they all sort of stood up last week. Both Saifitis and Leo Thompson, they all played really, really well. So if they can play anywhere near like they did last week, I think they can get the chockies in this one. And we know that with their new halves pairing of Jack Cogger, Jackson Hastings, they just simplify the game. Their role is essentially get KP in the best space possible and let him do the work, which I think is honestly the best thing for this Knights side. It's almost like Kalen Ponga can run the entire show. So I do see the Knights getting away with it in this one. I'm not, really confident in it, but I'm decently confident that they will get away with the win. In terms of my favourite matchups for this week, it's quite a hard one. You can look at the fullbacks because Joey Manu at fullback is a bit of a superstar, but the way I don't know, Joey Manu at fullback has never really been something I like watching. It's just lots and lots and lots of effort, not necessarily ball playing. It's just taking 48 runs a set. It's just not really something I'm too appealing. It's not something that's too appealing to me. So I'm actually going to look beyond the fullback duel. I do like Ponga. I'm a massive fan of Junior Ponga, or Fatalaga Ponga, I believe is his traditional name. I've definitely butchered that. But yeah, I really like his matchup. I believe he'll be marking up. If he's on the right-hand side replacing Dom Young, he should go up against Tuala, maybe. And if that's the case, I do like that as a little bit of a matchup. Beyond that, you can look into the forward pack. Leo Thompson, that sort of madman, up against Jared Warrior-Hargreaves. That's pretty good. I also really like the second row duels in this one. Angus Crichton and Nat Butcher, Dylan Lucas, Kai Pearce-Paul. You know what? I'm going to name those as my matchup for this game. I'm going to be, a little bit on the fence and say all of the second rowers, not just any two players. But yeah, the second rower duels in this one, that is my matchup for the game. Really excited to see how that one goes. In terms of what I've got for the bet for this game, let me just get that one up. You can see how organised I am for this sort of stuff. So for the multi I have, it's a bit out there. We have Knights head-to-head, which I don't think that leg is too out there. But I have got Angus Crichton as an anytime try scorer who's paying about $6, $6.50. Incredible odds for Angus Crichton. I thought he was fantastic last week. I can see him crossing in this one. And I've got the match going over 40.5 total match points, which means the odds of that come to $17.25. So if you're putting $1 on that and all three legs get up, you're winning $17.25 back to the dollar. I will once again read through those legs. That is Newcastle Knights head-to-head, Angus Crichton anytime try scorer, and over 40.5 total match points for an odds of 17.25. Once again, all my betting is done through Sportsbet. I am not affiliated with Sportsbet in any way. They are just the agency that I choose to bet with. If you're looking to follow any of these bets that I do it through Sportsbet. That's mainly just because a lot of these markets may not be available in other betting agencies, and even if they are, the odds may be completely different. So if you're looking to just have some fun right along these with me and get in contact with me and we can chat about it, do it through Sportsbet. But once again, I will say it every time, please make sure we're gambling responsibly. You lose more than you win, sorry. Don't be betting what you can't afford, guys. But that one sort of wraps us up for the Knights Roosters preview. As I said, I see the Knights getting away with the win in this one, but not the most confident. The Roosters, they go well with adversity, so they can definitely pull a win in this one. But yeah, Knights, I've got the win. For the next game, we move into our Friday games, starting with the Melbourne Storm taking on the Canterbury Bankstown Bulldogs. This one is 6 p.m, Friday, 12th of April in Amy Park, Melbourne. Melbourne home game, obviously. Storm currently sitting third on the ladder, and the Bulldogs are down in 13th. So very different here. Also, when we talk about the Roosters-Bulldogs game of last week and all the Roosters injuries and suspensions, well, the Bulldogs, they were very much the catalyst of that. They had a few injuries and suspensions of their own, so we'll get into their team list shortly. We'll start with Melbourne, but it's pretty easy to go through Melbourne because they have not made a single change to their side. It is the exact same team that lined up last week. Tepai Maroa was named last week. He was actually dropped late for Jack Holworth. Tepai Maroa has been named again. He may still be dropped, but if not, that could be the only change to their team, is Tepai Maroa actually playing in this game. While for the Bulldogs, this is where we get interesting. Blake Taaffe is out with concussion. He's, under the 11-day stand-down policy, which I believe rules him out of 2 games, because I think both of their next 2 games, the Bulldogs, this one and the week after, are within that 11 days. So that's really unfortunate for Blake Taaffe. But that means Stephen Crichton, their captain, their star recruit, he moves into the number 1 jersey, playing fullback for them. Very interesting to see how he shapes up in this one. Very exciting to see. Beyond that, Connor Tracy has been named despite suffering an injury. We didn't think he would be available for this game, but he has been named there. Jacob Kiraz moves back into the centres. Bronson Xerri, who was a late in last week as well, he's the other centre partner in Kiraz. Josh Adokar returns, making his way onto the wing. Important to note, by the way, Blake Wilson is out of this side once again. Originally, we're thinking it was form or just, being dropped for Tedesco for Adokar, etc. Apparently, Blake Wilson is dealing with a form of pneumonia and pretty worrying stuff. Hopefully, it's nothing that'll keep him out too long, but there's no set timeline on when his return is. So really hope he's getting all right with that, getting treated well, and he can come back whenever he's ready. But yeah, nothing form related or injury wise for Blake Wilson. It's just a very bad sickness. So hopefully he can get through that and come back the better from it. Beyond that, the Bulldogs have Chris Patolo named at front row this time. He ended up starting for them last week with Sam Hughes dropping to the bench, but this time Patolo is actually fully named at number 10 front row. Kikau Curran are the second rowers. Jamin Salmon, who ended up playing in the second row last week with Kurt Mann coming into lock, he moves back to lock Salmon, and Kurt Mann is out with, I believe it was a hand fracture. Beyond that, their bench is completely different. We have Bailey Hayward coming into the side to make his debut, so shout out Bailey, congratulations to you. Pawasa Farmasili returns for his first game since round 2, I believe it was. Sam Hughes, as I said, is back onto the bench, and Kitione Katonga, last week's debutant, is also on the bench. So lots of changes for the Bulldogs there. I think Harrison Edwards was the other man to make way. Might have been a HIA, otherwise it was just some other injury. But Harrison Edwards, who played last week, he also made way from this side. But yeah, lots of changes for the Bulldogs. In terms of how I see the game playing out, well, obviously, I've had to tip the Storm in Melbourne, coming off their bye. They're going to be refreshed. They're going to be ready. They've almost got a full-strength side. And the Bulldogs, they're ravaged by injuries. It's really unlucky that we don't get, full teams. I'm always here for seeing full-strength squads go at it. But because it's not, and because it's in Melbourne, and because Melbourne are coming off the bye, I really think they get away with the win. I can see it being quite high scoring for them. The Bulldogs, they're looking better and better, but they're still not really convincing to me. There's something about how Seraldo coaches that doesn't sit right with me. There's something just the way his selections and everything. It's something doesn't sit right with me. I think the Melbourne Storm win, and they win well. It could be a 13+ victory, to be honest. And the way that they're going to win, well, honestly, I just don't think there's a position on the park that they're worse in than the Bulldogs. Like Ryan Pappenhausen and Stephen Crichton. Maybe if Stephen Crichton was in the centres, you'd give him the nod. But I'm having Pappenhausen as a fullback over Crichton. Warbrick and Tracy. I'm the biggest Tracy person in the world, but Warbrick's a little bit more, I'd say, tried and tested on the wing position. But even if you want to give it to Tracy, it's a very close one. It's not like an out-and-out win. I'm happy to give it to Tracy because I love him. But yeah, Ramus Smith, Carraz, Nick Meaney, Jerry, Coates, Adokar, the Speedsters, Munster Burton, Hughes Hutchison, like the list goes on. I do think that the Storm are just better across the entire park and their bench is just stronger. I don't see a facet of the game that they really lose this. If the Bulldogs can come away with a win in this one, keep in mind they did beat the Storm in a similar time last year. It would have been around this round 6 sort of area, I think it was, and they were fantastic in that one. If they do come away with it, it's going to be one of their best wins of the season. It could really set them up. I just don't see a way that happens, unfortunately. I do think the Storm are going to be way too strong for them in this game. So, yeah, I just think across the park, Storm are better, and they win this one, and they win it well, unfortunately, for you Doggies fans. But honestly, I have a feeling that you all sort of feel that way as well. Beyond that, we will get into... we'll do our matchup, something I always forget to do. Now, you can look at the fullbacks once again. It's always easy to go to fullbacks because your fullbacks are your excitement machines. You can go to the 5'8". Matt Burton had one of his best games of his Bulldogs career last week, and he's got Cameron Munster up against him, the best 5'8" in rugby league. I love that. I'm going to look at the wingers. I love the idea of Xavier Coates and Josh Adokar. Xavier Coates is the right winger. Adokar's usually been the left this season, so they should... No. Coates is the left winger. Oh, okay, they might not mark up against each other. I just remember a few years ago, I think Coates might have still been in... No, I think he was in a Melbourne jersey. But where Coates picked up that ball and raced away, it might have been for the Broncos, and Adokar was chasing behind. I love the speedsters going at it. Regardless if they're not marking up against each other, I do like that sort of matchup, just the speedsters in these teams. I want to see them score a couple tries each. Beyond that, I like Josh Curran up against the Storm back rower. It's probably Eliesa Katoa, depending if Josh Curran ends up going back to the bench like he has been in recent weeks. But... yeah, I'm going to have to settle with the Xavier Coates and Josh Adokar matchup as my matchup of this game. So we will now move into my best bets. So as we alluded to earlier, I do have Melbourne Storm at 13 plus as my first leg of this multi. So the big win, little win, Melbourne Storm 13 plus is my first leg with Nick Meaney as an anytime try scorer. If you guys are Supercoach followers or you just follow my content in general, you would have noticed how high I am on Nick Meaney, how I've done a post essentially explaining how he's got an incredible run of games coming up, and I think he's going to be fantastic for the Storm. I see him crossing for a try in this one, so there's an anytime try scorer there. And I've avoided the whole total match points leg in this one, and I've gone with another try scorer, which is Harry Grant. He's not the best odds for Harry. I think it was around that $4 mark or $3.90. So not fantastic odds, but the way he's been playing this year, I think he's been exceptional. He's darting. He's very smart with how he chooses his runs from dummy half. I can see him just taking a wee little dart, breaking through and scoring a try. So Harry Grant and Nick Meaney are both anytime try scorers for this multi, and that comes to $11.50. So if you're putting $1 on that and you win all three legs, you win $11.50 back for your dollar. So once again, I read through them. That is Melbourne Storm 13 plus, Nick Meaney anytime try scorer, Harry Grant anytime try scorer. And that concludes the preview for the Melbourne Storm and the Canterbury Bankstown Bulldogs, which means we'll move into our late game for the Friday, which is the Brisbane Derby, the Brisbane Broncos taking on the Dolphins, the Redcliffe, the Dolphins. It's the Redcliffe Dolphins, let's be real. Dolphins, this is the 8 p.m. game, Suncorp Stadium, obviously. So Brisbane home game, but very much should be neutral fans out there. Broncos currently sitting in 11th, despite how good they've been this season. The Dolphins, they're in first. They're having an incredible start to the season, and shout out them. I think it's not being talked about nearly enough is that this is a team in its second season in the NRL, and they're leading the league. So fantastic stuff for the Dolphins. In terms of the ins and outs for these sides, well, let's get into it. The Broncos, they welcome back Reece Walsh in the fullback role. That is a massive, massive in for them. They do unfortunately lose Dean Mariner, who is out with a back fracture. So Corey Oates, who has been playing off the bench the last couple of weeks, he comes into the side on the wing. We move down more. Adam Reynolds, their experienced leader, he is out of the side with a hamstring injury, which means Jock Madden comes in to replace him at halfback. Continuing down the list, there's not too much changes to their forward pack. Jordan Ricky is currently listed, but is considered long odds to actually play this game, dealing with a bit of a niggle there as well. So he will probably be a late out, which I'm not sure where they go from there. Maybe Xavier Willison plays on the edge and they bring Martin DePauw, Ben Takura in. Not quite sure. We'll have to wait and see. At the moment, Jordan Ricky is named, and I guess he could still line up that way, but I do doubt that. But those are the changes for the Broncos. Important to note that Tristan Saylor, who was playing fullback in Walsh's absence, he's actually made his way into the bench in jersey 17, as well as Tyson Smoothie. So they're running with a hooker, a utility, and 2 forwards. So there's going to be a lot of work to be done for the Broncos. I assume Paddy Carrigan's going to be doing the 80 minutes once again. But very interesting to see how they shape up. They verse the Dolphins, who, of course, they're affected in a few different ways. In fact, actually, they're affected in a lot more ways than I've just realised. Herbie Farnworth, their star recruit, he is out with, I believe it's an AC joint injury. So he's out for, I think it's about 5-6 weeks. He's replaced by Tessie New in the centres. We go further down. Thomas Flegler is currently named, but I did also just see a post from the Dolphins. Flegler is dropping out due to an injury as well, with a young debutant to make his debut in the name of Lachlan Hubner. So I'm not sure if Hubner is going to start at front row, but he comes into this side in the place of Thomas Flegler. Beyond that, Felice Kaufusi is out with a hamstring injury, replaced by Kenny Bromwich in the second row. And their bench is Josh Kerr, Anthony Milford, who comes in for his first game of the season, Mark Nichols, Jared Wallace. But as I said, I'd assume Kerr, Nichols, or Wallace will start in the place of Flegler, and Hubner will make his way onto the bench. But those are the ins and outs for both sides leading into this Brisbane derby. The way I see it coming out, well, I've tipped the Dolphins. I think the Broncos getting Reece Walsh back is massive for them, but I think losing Adam Reynolds could be even worse. It all sort of depends. I think Jock Madden's a great little footballer, and if he can just get Reece Walsh in the right positions, he can run a field day out there. But it's a big risk if you're relying all on the one player. The Dolphins have been playing some incredibly consistent football across the park for their team, some really good team footy, and I really like how they've been going. I think, they're missing some big players here, but I think their replacements for all those players are a little bit better than someone like losing Adam Reynolds, one of the best halfbacks in our league, and getting replaced by Jock Madden. That's no shot to Jock Madden. Don't try and swing my words the wrong way. That's just the importance of Adam Reynolds to their side. So I think they're going to miss him quite a lot. I think the Dolphins, as I said, playing some really good footy, top of the table for a reason. I think they get the job done. So I have tipped the Dolphins in this one. And when it comes to the bets, it's very exciting because they're quite long odds in the betting department. I think they're almost around that $3 range, which is ridiculous because they're first on the ladder and Broncos are 11th. And the Broncos are still without some of their guns. No Payne Haas, no Adam Reynolds. It's pretty massive. Regardless, we will go into the matchups before we do our bets. So the matchups that I am liking in this one. Well, look, I've avoided the fullbacks in every other aspect so far in my previews. I don't think you can go past it here. Reece Walsh up against Hamiso Tabuai-Fidow, the two Queensland dynamos. Really exciting to see how they go up against it. Hopefully Reece Walsh isn't too scared. I doubt he will be of, coming back from his facial fracture. I think he'll be giving 110% as he always does. Exciting to see him back in the league. He's always such a joy to watch. And Hammer's having a fantastic season himself. Really electric, scoring many, many tries from long range. Really excited to see how these two match up against each other. I expect them both to have fantastic games for their sides. So I don't even want to look anywhere across any further across their teams. That is the matchup of the game for this one. The two fullbacks, Reece Walsh and Hamiso Tabuai-Fidow. Now we will move into our bets for this game. Just to finish off this podcast, we have the Dolphins as a head-to-head leg is my first one. As I said, I really like the odds in that one. Beyond that, we have Jermaine Isako scoring a try. Not the best odds for Isako. I think he's about $2.20, around about that, which I think is not bad for a winger who hasn't been scoring too many tries this year. We know he was like the top point scorer and I think top try scorer last season, maybe a little bit behind Dom Young in the try scoring department. But I think he will cross in this one. I'm very confident in Jermaine Asako as the second leg of the multi. And I have the match going under 45.5 total match points. So once again, that is Dolphins head-to-head, Jermaine Asako anytime try scorer, and under 45.5 total match points for the odds of $9.50. So if you're putting $1 on that, you're getting $9.50 back to the dollar. Once again, I'll just do a little reiteration right at the end here. All this is done through Sportsbet, guys. So if you want to follow along, get on these bets, message me on Instagram, follow the Instagram at Chip and Chase Podcast, and we can ride these together and have a laugh. If you are choosing to jump on any of these bets and they don't get up, it is not my fault. Do not come at me for them. You're choosing to do that of your own accord. But honestly, gambling is meant to be a little bit of fun. If gambling is no longer fun for you, please do seek help. Don't be jumping on these just for the hell of it. If you do get on it, swing me a message, swing me a DM, and we will ride these together and have a laugh about it, and hopefully we can win some money. But that will conclude us for the Thursday and Friday preview podcast. So thank you guys for tuning into this one, and I'll see you guys next time.